Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing is an authorized brother dealer and repairs all brands of machines. Mid-South Sewing, known for their many fabrics, classes, and individual instructions. Classes on sewing and embroidery machines, software, sergers, and quilting. Mid-South Sewing, Knoxville and Murfreesboro.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. Next to New Knox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, those millions of daffodils that pop up every spring alongside an East Tennessee highway didn't get there by accident. We have the story of the woman who started it all.
My mother had this idea initially of planting 1 million bulbs on the Pellissippi Parkway because a daffodil is forever.
Rex Allen Jr. talks about his love for Western music, his home in the Volunteer State, and his early years spent on the road and on movie sets with his father, the last of the singing cowboys.
From the time I was 7 years old, I left on the road with my dad. So I had my own room when I was 9 on the road with Dad, and we worked fairs and rodeos.
Take a ride across the Powell River on a one-of-a-kind Union County car ferry.
Well, I just like to go across the ferry. There's not many around anymore, and it's just like it's kind of fun.
Those stories this week on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. For many people in East Tennessee, a drive on a local highway just wouldn't be the same without thousands of yellow daffodils decorating the way. Ever wonder how they got there? Those blooms are thanks to a woman named Maria Compare. She had a vision that started it all, one that volunteers carry on today. We spoke to her daughter about Compare's legacy of making Tennessee beautiful.
My mother had just this tremendous sense of civic duty. And she was into beautification. She loved beautification. She had a magnificent yard and people would always come to see it. And she felt that Knoxville was a uniquely positioned, exquisitely beautiful piece of land. She wanted everyone to be able to have beautiful plants in their yard. No matter what your economic circumstance was, she felt that this was an inalienable right. And so they started Knoxville Green with the idea of beautifying Knoxville. My mother was Maria Compare. I'm Susie Compare. My mother was the one who started the Daffodil Project. She started this project in the mid-'80s on the Pellissippi Parkway. She chose that because it was a scenic parkway, and also it was the route that my father drove to his work at the lab in Oak Ridge. My mother saw photographs of a place where daffodils had been dumped actually and grew. She was a biochemist and she knew a lot of horticulture and botany. She was very aware of that. And she knew that nothing ate daffodils. Tulips, the Dutch lived on them in the Second World War. Everything will eat a tulip bulb if it has the opportunity. But if you drive out in the country, you see daffodils blooming, you know that that's an old home place because they have a toxin in the bulb. Nothing eats them. They're there forever. For every flower that you do not cut, that daffodil is going to make another bulb because that is, in effect, the seed. That's their reproduction. So every time you don't cut a daffodil, there's another little bulb that's going to move off the parent bulb and make another plant. So they spread, they prosper, and they have no predators. So she loved the idea of daffodils because to my mother, a daffodil was forever. And she's right.
I think daffodils in the East Tennessee area have a historical point of reference for people. If you go into Cades Cove in the Smoky Mountains, still around some of the old cabins that are there, you'll see daffodils. So I think daffodils resonate with people. They think of their grandmother's yard, they think of going out into the woods. So I think it has a real feeling of, I'm home now, spring is here, and all's right with the world.
My mother had this idea initially of planting 1 million bulbs on the Pellissippi Parkway. That vision grew, and ultimately she planted almost 3 million, in fact. It's truly incredible.
She was just instrumental in coalescing people together. The daffodils along Pellissippi Parkway was a huge project that grew year after year after year. And she was able to get different groups together that might not normally come together. She had high school students, she had grade school students, she had seniors, she had business people, she had people from the sheriff's office, she had people that were in jail that would come out and help plant the bulbs. So she could really coordinate a group of people into a community-based project like that.
I can clearly remember she had a crew from Brushy Mountain out there, and she says, "You're planting these bulbs upside down. Imagine you had to stand on your head. You have to make the bulbs comfortable. You see this bulb? It has a point. The point goes up. The roots, the flat part, that goes down. Now look, this is how you do it." And my tiny little, she was in her 90s then, mother gets down on the ground, pulls the dirt back with her hands, and she shows him, she says, "The bulb has to be like this, and you nestle the dirt around it, and it has to be comfortable. Think about that when you do this." And then she stomped off. My mother many times stopped and pointed out that these daffodils belonged to everybody, and people would go and dig them up. And this really infuriated my mother because her attitude was, this belongs to Knoxville. This belongs to the community. You have no right to come and steal these. They were not your efforts. At Easter, I understood everybody wants to come and have their children in their Easter best and go into a grouping of daffodils and take a picture. Of course, the kids stomp all over the daffodils. They don't mean to. There's no bad intention on anybody's part. But the parents are worried with their cameras and getting the pictures and putting them in the right place. And that's not their concern. But for every flower that's broken, that's a bulb that doesn't get created. She was always thinking about ways to make life more inviting, ways to make people feel good. My mother passed away in 2013.
Soon after Maria passed away, UT Gardens was approached by the Knoxville Green Alliance for a memorial to her. We came together with their group, with Maria's family, and created Maria's Garden. So it's just right here in the middle of the city, a reminder of the impact that this woman had on all of our lives.
Well, this is a special spot because of Maria's garden. This is a garden area that was put together for her and dedicated to her. And it has a lot of daffodils in it, and it will be having more. I get all these emails, and they say, "You don't know me, but I just want to say thank you, because every time I drive down the Pellissippi, it makes me smile." What an awesome legacy.
Later on Tennessee Life, take a ride with us on Helms Ferry. It's a fun trip on the water for tourists, but a daily time saver for people in Union County. But next, Rex Allen Jr. on life with a famous father and making his own mark on Western music.
You could say Rex Allen Jr. was just born to entertain and play Western music. After all, not every kid grows up on movie sets with a famous dad and big names like Roy Rogers, but Tennessee has been home for most of Alan's career in music and other opportunities in television and film. I asked Rex Allen Jr. about his father and his singing cowboy roots.
My father, Rex Allen, now most people remember him as Rex Allen Sr. in his later years when I became famous, but my dad, Rex Allen, was the last singing cowboy. He was the #1 box office attraction at motion pictures and theaters from 1952 to 1954. Dad was the last singing cowboy.
Tell me where you grew up.
I was born in Chicago when my mother and father were on a radio program called the WLS National Barn Dance. It's kind of like what the old radio show used to be here in Knoxville or the one in Nashville. And my parents met when Mom and Dad were on WLS in Chicago. My mother retired when she married my father, had me, and then my dad went to California to do films for Republic.
Share some more of your memories of your father and growing up in that Western era. I think that is so interesting.
You know, well, my father was the last of a lot of things. He was the last really big star at radio in Chicago. He went on to California and took a huge cut in pay to become the last singing cowboy. Then Dad had the last full-blown Western on TV called Frontier Doctor. Then when he went on to narrate all the Disney things, Dad narrated 140 plus Wonderful World of Colors for Walt Disney. I grew up on the movie sets as a boy. That's where I played. I grew up around John Wayne. My dad and John Wayne, Roy Rogers, and a bunch of those people were all partners together.
Would you say you were just destined to be in show business because of your dad, Rex Allen Sr.?
Absolutely. I'm writing a book about all of it, and one of the things that I'm going to bring up in the book, and I'll tell you, is that my brother Kurt is 2.5 years younger than me. When my parents were raising us, they had a big argument one night about how to raise the children. And my dad says they need to go on the road and they need to see what their father does for a living. And my mother said, no, they need to stay here. We're going to build a new life for these kids. And, you know, they're going to play with the doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs in California. So what they did to compromise is they separated my brother and I. I mean, we still, you know, we lived in the same house and went, you know, to school together. But in the summer months, from the time I was 7 years old, I left on the road with my dad. I had my own room when I was 9 on the road with Dad, and we worked fairs and rodeos. I used to brag to all the kids in my neighborhood I'd been to every town west of the Mississippi River by the time I was 12, and that's about the truth. So I was raised on the road with Dad. So did I have a choice as to what I was going to be? Did I always think that I would be an entertainer? Honestly, Vicki, I never thought that there was anything other to do. Do I regret that? Absolutely not. I have had a wonderful and charming and rewarding career. You know, it's been great, and it's not only thanks to my early upbringing with my dad, but then to me, my years here in Tennessee have been so extremely rewarding and productive.
Tell me about your path to Tennessee.
I actually moved to Nashville in about 1971. Left LA and moved to Nashville. I always tell people that they say, well, you moved to Nashville. I said, no, I moved back to Nashville because Tennessee is what has been the Allen's homestead since the 1700s, you know, which is kind of cool, you know.
The home you live in now in Nashville is called the Tree House. Tell me about that.
I live in a tree house. It's out in the Bellevue area, and it sits on a mountainside, and it's on stilts. It's on stilts, like at a California home. And you walk out, every window you look out of at my house, you look out at the 50-foot level of a tree. So that's why it's called the Tree House.
That's the Tree House.
Oh, it's neat up there. It's quiet, and the trains are, I've got a train track down at the bottom of the hill, and They go through about, maybe half a dozen to a dozen times a day, and it's just wonderful.
You had the opportunity to record some albums with your dad. Tell me what that meant to you.
I think that the album with Dad and I, if you haven't heard it, it's called The Singing Cowboy, plural, and it's on iTunes. You can get it on iTunes. You can't buy a hard copy of it anywhere. It's awful hard to find hard copies. You got to download everything nowadays. But was it a challenge? Yes. We took music from the masters that Dad had and masters that I had from all of my albums that I'd done all of these songs on. And then Dad and I couldn't get him to come to Nashville to record. And so I went to Tucson with a producer out of LA, and they met us there, and we actually went in the studio and did all new vocals. So it was, what a thrill. Come on, that's great. And the album I did with Dad was not for money. Warner Brothers gave me the opportunity to put together an album on Dad and I. And so it was done not too long before he passed away.
Tell me about some of your television and film work that you've done.
Over a period of 9 years, I did 100 episodes of the Statler Brothers show. I did 2 years of my own show called Yesteryear. I had 9 wonderful years on TNN. 99, I got the call and I picked up a whole new audience and fan base, and that was when they called me to narrate Me, Myself, and Irene. You know, I'm the guy that says, meet Charlie Bailey Gates of the Rhode Island State Police, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Poor Charlie. Well, I picked up a whole new, it's become a cult film. But I've done commercials. I still do commercials. I did some just last week, 6 more, and I do them all from the house now.
What do you want to do next?
Retire.
And when would that ever happen?
Actually, I've picked the day.
You have?
I'm going to hang up the guitars in the first place I ever performed.
Where is that?
It's at the small movie theater in Wilcox, Arizona, the Garden Spot of the Universe, Center of Culture and Education, Cattle Capital of the World, and hometown of Rex Allen. That's where they do Rex Allen Days. And that's the first place I ever performed in 1954. And I'm going to hang up the guitars at that point in time. The reason why is because I'll be 70 years old, and there's other things that I want to do. I'm tired of seeing the world from one side of the footlights. I want to see it from the other side for a while. I want to go to Wales, and I want to go to Ireland, and I want to go without a guitar.
Would you like to play something for us?
Now let's see, cowboys and outlaws on big movie screen. Good guys and bad guys and horses with names. Gone not forgotten, just rode out of town. And all are a part of my memories now. Saturday morning, the posse would meet with cap guns and bicycles out in the streets. We'd all dress like cowboys and go get in line to cheer for our heroes just one more time. Where are the heroes for my boy today? And who'll make the memories for him when he's gray? Will he never ride on the range like I did? Will he never know what it means to have heroes? Yes,
Thank you, Rex Allen Jr., for sharing your Tennessee life with us today. It has been a fabulous experience.
It's great to
Thank
see you again,
you.
and thank you for having me.
The community of Sharps Chapel in Union County is home to one of the last car ferries in Tennessee. For 3 decades, Helms Ferry has connected people in lakeside communities in 3 counties. It isn't a fancy ride, but that ferry is the difference between an hour drive the long way or just 7 minutes on the water. We took a ride across the Powell River and talked to the namesake of Helms Ferry.
I like to go across the ferry. There's not many around anymore, and it's just like it's kind of fun. A lot more fun to go this way than go all the way around.
In '36, I believe it was, TVA offered them a bridge or so much money, and the county took the money instead of the bridge. Well, the people wanted the ferry to get across back and forth. They'd always asked for it every election. And then I wouldn't promise them a ferry, but I told them I would try. And so it come up, the Center's Ferry in Roane County had one down there they was going to get rid of, so we bought it. And my name's Clayton Helms. I was the road superintendent, elected in 1984, and I did put the ferry in. And well, the newspaper was there, and there's, I don't know, I'd say about 100 and some people. And the insurance just covers 6 people at a time. And that's all we're supposed to haul, 6 people at a time across there. We had 100 and something on it. We went across that day with 100 and some people on that thing and come back with them on there. But I got to thinking afterwards, I said, my gosh, I could have gotten in big trouble over that, you know. But we never did hear nothing about it.
The time saving is probably an hour each direction if you're going to Minorville from the Speedwell community. We call it the 13th district, what we call it, but it's been convenience for them.
Yeah, it takes about 8 minutes. I can put 6 vehicles, full size like the truck here. You can put whatever you put on it, they can haul it. If you get off the bank, you can haul it. Dump trucks, floats, backhoes, bulldozers. The biggest down had I hauled 120, but now some of them was vehicles, but most of them was motorcycles.
It was handy for getting equipment across and rocks and servicing those people over on that side. Then the public wanted, you know, transportation across too, so we let them ride too.
And it's free. That's unusual this day and time. We were going up to McLeod Mountain to spend the night, and we decided to come across the ferry and come the long way. Well, it prevents you from going all the way around Powell Valley if you're going toward La Follette. It's actually quite a bit shorter, plus it's more pleasant. It's a lot of fun to go across the ferry, I think. I guess this is the only ferry operating in Tennessee, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's any more county-operated ferries in the state of Tennessee. I think there's 1 or 2 run by the State Department. Yeah, probably more people in the summer use it, and maybe fall out riding and looking at the leaves. And there's a lot of tourists come through and ride it, and people just hear about it and come get on and ride across.
Well, we've had people from up north want to know if we sold souvenirs and things like that, you know, on it, and said no, and wonder why we didn't charge.
If the lake's coming up and there's a lot of debris out there, you can't run. You got to watch for head, you know. And the wind, sometimes it gets you. You have to shut down.
Well, it don't take much wind at all. They have to stop it. You would think that big a ferry that the wind wouldn't bother it, but it will. It'll bother it. It sure will. But the guys that's on there now do a good job, I think. Do an excellent job on it. We come under the same guidelines as Staten Island Ferry. Same guidelines. Ferry's a ferry, so We've had problems with that. You know, when they wrecked up there, they come down on us too. So we had to shorten the tugboat to make it legal. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it. It was a job getting up here and getting it in there, but I am proud of it, you know. I wish I'd made it fancier.
We hope you've enjoyed the stories we brought you on this episode of Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you next time.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing is an authorized brother dealer and repairs all brands of machines. Mid-South Sewing, known for their many fabrics, classes, and individual instructions. Classes on sewing and embroidery machines, software, sergers, and quilting. Mid-South Sewing, Knoxville and Murfreesboro.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by Next to New, an upscale consignment shop serving Knoxville. Next to new Knox.com. And by The Flower Pot, for over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. A DVD of this program is available by visiting EastTennesseePBS.org.